Okay, good afternoon and welcome everybody to CTPPUG. Just as a quick intro, I'm Jonathan Hartz and I'm a technical architect based in the Johannesburg NTC. So just some logistics for today's session. As usual, the session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Sorry, I've got the wrong item on. There we go. So it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I do apologize for the previous one. There was an issue with the recording. It is still there, but some parts, especially the parts that I was presenting, was cut a bit small. It was just the video window that was being recorded. We realized that the spotlight feature in Teams doesn't record the spotlight. It just records everyone's video. But I've managed to sort that out, and going forward, the rest of the videos should be all right from there. Normal logistics, just please make sure you are staying on mute. Background noise can cause interruptions to everyone on the call. And also, just if you do want to ask a question, please don't hesitate to interrupt us. I'd rather have you ask the question when it's fresh in your mind and we still have the context so that we can get answers to it. Otherwise, use the raise hands feature or the meeting chat. We will be keeping an eye on both. So just the agenda for tonight. What we're going to be doing is I'm just going to be covering the news, some new things that are coming out, some new exciting items that are coming out. And then we've got Maseh Chaba from Liberty, who's going to be taking us through hosting a Power Apps hackathon. I had the opportunity to involve with a hackathon that Liberty ran recently. It was an amazing experience. And I thought if she could just share some of the things that she went through in order to set that up, I think it will add a lot of value to everyone on the call. And then Dawid, you're going to be doing the tech tip of the month. Michael's got some stuff that he's going to show us later, and then we'll just leave it open for general Q&A at the end of the session. Okay. So with that, I think we'll get started. So just in the news, some new items that are coming through. One thing that we are doing is we're going to be retiring web.powerapps.com. So if you are utilizing this link still, please just go make sure you update your bookmarks. There is a list of what the current path is as well as what the new path is going to be. We will be having redirects available for a couple of months, but just to make sure that when we do remove those redirects, that your stuff stops working, just make sure that you have updated all your links and your bookmarks in there. Okay. Another exciting feature that's coming out is we've improved the search experience within model-driven apps. So this is going to give us, it's going to make it much easier for us to discover and search for information in model-driven apps. And there's a lot of enhancements that's helped the way you interact with the search, and the search results that are coming back are a lot more relevant. It's a lot more easier to find. There is also a new search API that's available into the CDS, and that's going to make search queries a lot better. So as you can see, we're putting a lot of effort into the search capabilities within the Power Platform. Another awesome one that's been made generally available is Power App Portals, identity providers. So this has been in GA for a couple, well, it's been in preview for a couple of months already, should I say. But it is now generally available for everyone to use, just making it a lot easier for you to integrate your portals that you are developing with the other identity providers out there, the likes of Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and so on. So as you can see, anything that supports OpenID Connect, SAML 2.0, and WS Federation is going to be working great. We've also added 24 new connectors in October. So this just goes to show the investment that we're making around this. Another one from our side is the Power Apps Notification V2 connector. So there are some new features and enhancements in that connector so that you can send the notifications through to Power Apps on the mobile devices directly. So I'll share a link to this website that lists all of these connectors and the capabilities of all of them. You can see we're even integrating into a couple of SMS providers. I think I have taken the Azure SMS provider off of here. The Azure Communication Services is there as well. One that's been asked for a lot is with our Builder, the forms processing component of it. We now have the ability to train documents which have different layouts. Now, in the past, if you were doing training on a document to try and get the info out of it, you would need the same layout on all the forms that you were training with. If you had other types of invoices or documents and you wanted to train them, you would likely have to build out other models and then do something funky with the Power Automate flow or however you're using it to be able to differentiate the documents and to be able to choose the correct flow. Now you're able to create collections within that model, and each collection has its own set of documents. You can train each one individually, and that way you've at least got a single AI model for your forms processing. We can, as it says there, we can support up to 100 different document layouts. So think of organizations that are looking at processing invoices and they work with numerous suppliers. This makes it a lot easier to do than it was in the past. The AI Builder consumption report is now also generally available. So within the report center in Power Platform Admin Center, you can go in and you can download the reports. You're just going to choose the AI Builder report, download it, and then it's going to give you access to how much it's being used inside your organization if you do need to procure additional licenses and capacity and everything else. So you can make sure that you are catering for exactly your needs. Okay, so with that, I just want to check and see, are there any questions from anyone, or has anyone picked up anything else in the news that they might want to mention? Okay, perfect. So with that, Maseshaba, I'd just like to welcome you to CTPPUG. Thank you for your time today, and I'm going to hand over to you to do an introduction. Maseshaba, can you hear me? You are on mute.
Hi, Jonathan. I can hear you
there
now.
we go.
Thank you so much
perfect.
for the intro. There was a bit of feedback there. I assume everything is good from a sound point of view.
Yes, yeah, I can hear you clearly. So just maybe do a brief introduction of who you are, and then we can go through everything from there.
Okay, cool. So my name is Maseshaba Wesi, and I work. I'm from Liberty, basically, and I work within the technology value office, and my role is really lead specialist business transformation. I'm responsible for driving adoption of M365 across the Liberty enterprise, and just driving adoption just generally of particularly technology solutions, particularly strategic technology solutions that the organization has invested in. Hi, everybody. I didn't even greet everyone. Hi, everyone on the call. So basically, that's my intro.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Then you could just take us through what the Liberty hack entailed and everything else. That's perfect.
Okay. All right. Happy to do that. Thank you so much for the invite. I think before I delve into the presentation, I just want to set context around, our Liberty Hackathon. Basically, we had a hackathon about a month ago, and the hackathon really went really, really well. And there was a particular process that we went through in terms of planning this hackathon. It was our first time as a team of 5 people planning a hackathon. So we had no experience at all, but I think it really, really went well. So just to provide a bit more context around why the Liberty Hackathon. So Liberty went on the M365 journey from 2019, March. And the first year was to roll out to about 2,000 users. And then we were going to stagger the rollout throughout 2020. Then what happened was COVID happened, a lockdown happened, and people needed to be able to work from home very quickly. So what we had to do is rethink our approach. And what we did was we enabled everybody to work on the platform within a matter of, I think, a week or about 2 weeks, enabling, most of the organization to work from home. Some people had to work on the online version of the platform, but at that point, it was what it was. It was just about allowing people to be able to engage, connect with their teams, and continue the work that they were doing in the office. So going through that journey, what we then realized was that, your basic solutions within the platform, particularly your collaboration tools, we had an entire plan around how we were going to drive adoption of those tools. And people just adopted them through obviously a lot of training and a lot of hand-holding. And by the time we got to mid-year, we realized that there was an opportunity for us to actually focus on the power tools, because our adoption approach had completely turned. We had to refocus completely. So when we looked at the hackathon, what we thought was, this is a perfect opportunity for us to lower barriers of entry. Number one, what we meant by that was we wanted people across the organization. Something is happening to my screen. There we go. Something's happening to my presentation, guys. Sorry about that. Let me try and log on to my laptop again.
Okay.
So I am basically on 2 devices now because my laptop kind of pulls these funny tricks at the most unexpected times. So let us just please give me a moment, and I'll be back.
Not a problem.
With appraisal.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Not a problem. While we're waiting for Mr. Chaba, Dawid, anything that you've heard lately in the news or something that you want to bring up and mention?
No, not really. You did. I think you did a sterling job.
Okay, great.
I am almost there. Please
Okay.
give me a sec. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna reshare the presentation with you guys right now. There we go.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Can see now. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. There we go. So barriers, we wanted to lower barriers of entry to make people across the enterprise realize that you don't have to be technically inclined to take advantage and use these power platforms. We wanted to build the capability because we did not have the capability internally. We wanted to support the culture of innovation. We're going through this digital transformation journey, and innovation and a culture of innovation is an important part of that. And we wanted to support that as a team. And we really wanted to build some excitement around M365 and show people what was possible through M365. So what we did was we went through a journey, which I'll talk to in the coming slides, but going into the hackathon, we had 13 teams, 90 plus hackers, and 11 ideas that came out of the hackathon. And we obviously had to partner with some people internally, obviously, which was Human Capital, Group Comms, and our Center of Excellence. Going on to the next slide. So basically, we had to go through a preparation process. We started the preparation process in July for a go live of October the 15th and the 16th. It was a 24-hour hackathon. It was virtual. All teams were working virtually. So what we did is put them through a particular process. So what you'll see with the hackathon steps, the initial process after we launched was we allowed our participants to register on an app that had been built particularly for registration purposes and for people to build teams on the app and for people to select ideas and to collaborate on the app. We took people through an induction to tell them what they were going to expect over a 6-week period. Post the induction, we took all of the teams into design thinking sessions along with the idea owners. So what we did before we launched was we went across the organization and sourced business problems across the organization. And we ended up with 13 business problems that we were going to focus on. So during the design thinking process, people, the idea owners and the teams went into the solution together, and post that we took them into training sessions, which Microsoft and BUI were very helpful with. We took them into training sessions for the power tools and focusing on their particular solution that they wanted to build to solve the problem. And then post the training, we took them into mentorship sessions. Mentorship sessions were very, very important because this is where our guys were able to truly engage, get their hands dirty post the training. And our mentorship sessions happened with BUI and Standard Bank, and they were quite hands-on, basically. And then came Go Live, and we went live with the hackathon, and I'll speak to it later. Our engagement platforms throughout the preparation process was a Power App, which was the app that we built, was the SharePoint sites that we built for the hackathon, and a bit of Yammer, but I don't think we got our Yammer strategy entirely correct, which is something we can fix going into 2021. Part of the preparation process in terms of the mentoring was to also ensure that on the day of the hackathon, to ensure that our participants had sufficient support, we created a mentorship, a mentorship service level process, basically. So Standard Bank formed level 1 mentoring because they were involved with each and every team. There were 2 mentors per team, and they were quite engaged in the solutions. So Standard Bank served as level 1, and with all 13 teams, what happened was our Standard Bank mentors were actually part of the hackathon process. BUI served as our second level of support. So where Standard Bank couldn't help our participants, BUI would come in. If BUI couldn't provide the support required, we would call on Microsoft to support. And we didn't even get to Microsoft, actually, because Standard Bank and BUI were actually very good and quite hands-on. And I think that the approach around the mentoring and getting the teams involved with the mentors earlier on really, really helped quite a lot. So in terms of the hackathon Go Live, you'll see that we have a particular theme that's going around the Go Live. Before we launched with a particular theme, a particular look and feel. And obviously there was quite a lot of comms that happened prior to the launch and prior to the Go Live of the hackathon. So you'll see here, it was virtual. We set up a virtual stage. We set up a virtual DJ. You'll see at the top right and bottom left. We had 2 DJs. They formed part of the entertainment. On the agenda on the day of the hackathon, we had comedians. We had loads of prizes to give away. We had competitions. Our live stream actually had a chat section on the side, so people could chat on the side while all this activity was happening throughout the day. Our saving grace for the day is truly, truly the entertainment. And it's funny that we actually decided on the entertainment at the last minute, but that was what kept the energy going, what kept people motivated. There were participants that were part of this live event, and there were also non-participants. We had about 1,000 people that were registered on the live events that came in and dropped off at different points. But as people came in and dropped off, where they left the energy, that's where they found the energy, because the energy was consistently at a very, very high level. So what you'll see right now is some of the feedback that came out of, the hackathon. All these images are the chats that were on the side, stuff that people were posting on the side during that 24-hour period. We thought at night it would slow down. It didn't slow down. When I woke up, I slept at 1, and the energy was still high. When I woke up at 4:30, people were still crazy going on this timeline. At some point, the timeline could not keep up with the amount of comments that people were making from all the excitement that was happening. And it was just bouncing. It was crazy. The feedback that we got from the hackathon was that 90% of the people gave us 5 stars for that hackathon, which was great feedback for us, given that when we started, we didn't know what we were doing. But I think that the value that we got out of the hackathon was the fact that we got business problems solved through some form of POC through that hackathon process. So where we are now is we've gone back to those business people or the idea owners, so to speak, and said, how do we support you implement this further? And we are busy engaging all those different idea owners around implementation. Some are further than others, and there's just great excitement around what is possible with the power tools. A big win is we built capacity. So now people are coming to us and saying, I want to build this type of app. I want to solve this problem using this type, using one of the Microsoft Power Tools, which is what we wanted to achieve, especially given the fact that we want to build that center of excellence within the Liberty context. Jonathan, how much time do I have left?
You still got more than enough time. You can carry on.
Really? Okay. Okay, yeah. Great. So some of the lessons learned, looking back at the hackathon, what we did really, really well was we onboarded stakeholders well in time. I think when we started engaging with Microsoft, it was around July, and our hackathon was in October. Engaged Standard Bank, it was around August as well, and BUI as well. So our external stakeholders and our internal stakeholders were engaged in time. And I think that was something that we did really, really well. On the day of the hackathon, actually prior to the hackathon, 2 days before the hackathon, what we did was we delivered care packs to our hackathon participants, given that in a physical hackathon, there is constant food and there's coffee and there's this and there's that. And given that it was going to be a virtual hackathon, we just thought to put together a care pack for the guys that we'd send and deliver to their houses. And in this care pack was snacks, a cap, Uber voucher, and some coffee sachets and sweets and stuff like that, which they did not expect, which was a fantastic surprise for them, and Red Bulls, by the way, to carry them through the 24-hour period. That was something that was quite great, because even before the hackathon started, what you saw on the timeline was the participants posting pictures of themselves wearing the caps that we had gotten them with the hackathon branding on it, just to create that vibe. And all participants actually, when we called a team on stage, all participants had their caps on, which just looked amazing. I spoke about mentors. Mentors, I believe, were the saving grace of our hackathon, because they were able to embed the skills that the participants gained through the training session and built the confidence for all those participants. Entertainment, absolute key. Entertainment keeps people going. It keeps the vibe going. It keeps the energy going. It is so important. And I'm so glad that even at that last minute, we made a call to actually have entertainment on the day and throughout the 20. Judging process. I think how we approach the judging process, definitely there's a big lesson learned from that. We did the judging process ourselves. We were kind. There were a couple of people that were kind enough to come on board. Standard Bank came on board. Microsoft came on board. BUI came on board, and we had some of our partners within Liberty that were part of the judging panel. I think what we could have done was stretch out that judging process a little bit more in terms of time. What we should have done is actually build an app for that judging process as opposed to make it manual, because it was a team that was engaging with the judges and getting the judges to score. But what we used was forms to score the teams that were part of the hackathon. And there was a two-phased approach to judging. So the first phase, we asked teams to record a video and a 3-minute video and present their solution in that 3-minute video. And what then would happen would be judges would then judge all 13 teams, and the top 5 would be picked, and top 5 teams would go into physical engagements with, well, not physical, virtual engagements with the particular judges. And that process, I think that phasing it as phase 1 and phase 2 was great, but I think automating that process is important going forward, because with manual, there's a lot of work you need to do in the background, which becomes quite unnecessary. Whereas if it's just automated and things just get scored electronically, I think it would work better. And post-hackathon support. We were so excited about, this hackathon that the energy we put into planning wasn't the same energy that we put into the post-hackathon support. But where we are now, we are building a support model around how do we then take these ideas out of the hackathon and implement them. So I believe 2021, the process will be smoother into how do we, take an idea from ideation into hackathon and then post-hackathon and into implementation stage. And that was about it. So this was basically our hackathon look and feel for all our comms, for our app. So wherever we spoke hackathon, this was our look and feel.
This is really awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Just one question from my side. What made you decide to include the rest of the organization in the hackathon? Typically, when we have hacks, it's only really the people participating directly in the hack that are involved. Why did you decide to bring in the rest of the business, and what value do you think they added to the whole event?
I think because we had gone to the entire business asking for business problems, it became important for us to include them on this journey so that they could also witness how this platform is able to solve their business problems. And when we launched the hackathon, we launched it to the entire organization. Even during our planning, we planned for hackathon participants and we planned for non-participants. Because when you have a physical hackathon, this hackathon was supposed to be physical in the Liberty building. So yeah. When you have a physical hackathon in the building, people would be walking around. People that aren't part of the hackathon would be walking around, coffees, going for lunch, and they'd be witnessing everything that's happening in the main atrium. And that's, we thought, if that was going to happen in a physical environment, why don't we enable it as well in a virtual environment as well? Okay.
Have you seen an uptake in people wanting to try the platform since then?
No, definitely. We have seen an uptake in people trying to use the platform. I'm sorry, my laptop just did another number on me. So we have seen an uptake in people trying to use the platform and a keen interest in people wanting to see what is possible.
Okay, perfect.
That is amazing. That really is phenomenal stuff. What was the measurable? So if you say the uptake was quite good, is there anything that you can measure, you know, by the number of app makers that are now new and excited? What are your thoughts around those statistics?
I think for me, 90 plus people in the organization now know how to use a Power tool, how to build a Power Automate process, which they had absolutely no idea about. This was not even IT focused. The team that actually won the hackathon are people that are from risk, which we were so happy as a team, as an M365 team, because it actually went to prove the point that you don't have to be technically inclined to be part of this process. So for us, the fact that business people were able to become part of this process and learn, and the feedback that we got from the participants around how much they've learned and how much they know and how excited they are about what they now know, for us was quite a good indicator around, you know, having achieved our goal.
So yes, David, it's Edgar here. I just want to add with the whole idea of going an open hackathon to the entire organization and the value that has been added in there. Just want to add on what Master Java has already added. So basically, the intent was also to make sure that we raise a whole lot of awareness behind the use of Microsoft 365 tools. Because initially we found that people, they are using Microsoft Teams, but the whole idea is just that I just go and use it for office tools such as Word, PowerPoint, and just to go to the meetings with Teams. But now we wanted to show people that there are other applications that you can actually use to solve your business problems. And I think get much more value because people now they can start to see Microsoft 365 with a different look as opposed to seeing it as only having to create presentation, joining the meeting, but now using the tools much more effectively to solve their business challenges.
That makes so much sense. And I think that in general, how many people took part in the hackathon?
It was about 90 participants. So we said to teams 5 to about 8 people per team. It was actually 13 teams, not 11 teams. It was 13 teams. So in totality, I think we had about 92 people join the hackathon. But we had to cut people off. The 92 are people that were cut off. People that registered for the hackathon in totality, I think we had about 100 and, Edgar, correct me if I'm wrong, between 130 to 145 or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I'm sure the next hackathon, now that you've included all the organization, I'm sure there's not a lot of people who will be very excited to take part in the next one. So I'm sure the next one would be even bigger than this.
No, definitely.
That's phenomenal. So what did the risk team build, the guys who won the hackathon?
So what they built was a risk disclaimer app, because what they were trying to solve for was for the process was basically very manual. There were forms, I think, that were sent around. So what they built was an app where everyone can go and do their disclaimers online on an app. And that app is accessible to everybody.
Sure, that's amazing.
Conflict of interest, actually, that's what it's called. Conflict of interest tool.
Awesome.
Okay, that's phenomenal.
Any other questions? Mark, I see you came off mute. Oh, sorry, David, are you still busy?
No, I just wanted to say this is such an awesome way of introducing the Power Platform to the organization. And I think I love the fact that you included the entire organization, because typically the word hackathon, make people think that it's sort of something to do with IT and security and whatever. So I think that the way that you've introduced it to everybody is just paving the way for an even greater uptake for the next tranche. So this is absolutely top stuff. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'll relay the message to the team as well.
Hi, Masachava. Thanks so much for sharing. Wow, it's an absolutely awesome story. What you and your team have done for your organization is absolutely phenomenal. And I just want to say thank you for sharing to us firstly. And I do have a question. I wanted to know, how did you go about finding business problems? Like you said you managed to find 13, and it sounds easy, all businesses have problems, but how did you actually go and find them and get people to share?
Yeah. So what we did is I engaged people across the organization. So it was about getting into those important Manco meetings and positioning what we were trying to do. So the first person that we positioned, the first team or division rather, not team, that we positioned the hackathon with was human capital, because based on the employee experience framework, the work that we were doing around the hackathon aligned so closely to the segments. They have an employee experience wheel basically, and it's got about, I think, 6 segments. So the work that we were doing through the hackathon aligned to about 4 of those segments, and we were able to show them how this hackathon will align to what they were trying to achieve from a strategic objective point of view. Once we did that, we then moved across all the divisions. So we spoke to retail solutions, we spoke to finance, we spoke to our IT counterparts that had partners around the whole organization. So it was about engaging the entire organization. And once you start those engagements, and some of them were about calling people personally to say, listen, I know that you are part of this division and we are doing this hackathon, and we want to find out if there are business problems in your area that you want to solve. One of the problems that we got from me calling somebody personally was a customer approval process that the business user wanted to automate and digitalize as well. So it's just really about engaging people across the organization and ensuring that you are in the right, I don't want to say meetings, but you're speaking to the right people that understand the business and that can give you the right, business problems to solve.
Awesome. Thanks for
Yeah,
that.
I think that also just puts a different spin on things. I mean, typically you try and make the auditors happy after the fact, but if you have them win the hackathon, then they're just happy to start off with.
Our risk guys.
Yeah, because they're usually the ones that cause the most problems.
No, what we were so happy about was when they said, well, guys, we won't get that upset with you guys anymore, because we understand when things are not working on your side, because we've experienced it firsthand.
Oh, that's great. Oh, awesome. Any other questions from anyone on the call?
So just one last one. You mentioned that there were 5 guys in your team, right, who did all of this?
Yes.
That's phenomenal. In 3 months, or it's like 3 months from. That's crazy. That's, I would have guessed at least double that. So absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah, they're amazing. They are an amazing team, and Edgar is one of the people that were part of the team. I don't know if the other guys are online, but I know Edgar's online.
We are here.
Oh, hi, Menzi is also here. So Menzi is another team member of ours. Menzi, maybe go on camera.
Yeah, put on your cameras.
Lerato and Patu. I don't think Lerato and Patu are here.
We are here.
Hey guys, you
Hey.
please switch on your video so that everyone can see you guys. So guys, these guys are amazing. We met every day. I stressed them out so much, and I must be honest, the fact that we delivered such an amazing hackathon was not because of Masachaba. It was actually because of the faces that you see on the screen.
Oh.
These are the amazing guys that actually delivered this amazing experience for the whole of Liberty.
Oh, that's great. Really well done, team. It was an amazing event. Like I mentioned in my mail to you afterwards, I've been involved in numerous hackathons around the globe, and this is by far one of the best ones I've ever attended. So really well done in a great job. It was really awesome.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing.
If somebody asks me to arrange a hackathon, I wouldn't know where to start. And the second thing that I really enjoy about this is Power Platform is really about, it's not about IT people, and I really enjoy demonstrations where business was able to help themselves in solving a business problem, because it's really business who are close to these problems, and I think that's the objective of the Power Platform. And I think to see the way that you took the solutions to business and to get them excited about the platform is absolutely astonishing. So yeah, great stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, team. Really appreciate you sharing. It's really, I'm sure a lot of people can get value out of it.
Thanks, Jonathan. And thanks for the invite and for your time. And thanks, M365 team. Love you guys always.
Great. And we look forward to seeing you in more of these meetups. You've got the info now, so we meet every month, so join these in the future. You'll get a lot of great insights out of it.
No, definitely. We'll definitely be part of this community.
Yeah, Jonathan, I don't think we're going to be able to teach them anything, eh? I think.
Oh, guys, come on.
Okay, perfect.
All right,
thanks again,
guys.
team. Really appreciate it.
Thank
okay,
you.
So next item, Dawid, I think we hand over to you.
Is it me or Michael? It's me.
It's first you, yeah.
Okay.
Tip first and then Michael next.
All right. So cool. So we're going to show you a tech tip of flexible height galleries. Now, I don't know who of you have worked with it before, but they can be a real pain in a chair. I think that I'm going to be honest, and it took me a while to get my head around them fully. So I'm gonna show some tips and tricks on how to really make the most of them. And there's also a new pattern that we've discovered that I want to share with you guys on really to just add the cream on top of it. So Jonathan, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's clear.
Is it a brand new Power App?
Brand new Power App.
Just full of possibilities. I mean, just so much can happen from here.
Yeah.
All right, so in essence, for those of you who don't know, so a flexible height gallery is essentially a way of displaying content of different sizes in one gallery. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to add a button because that's where most POCs start with. So, and for this button, I'm just going to basically populate two collections. So I'm going to paste this in here because nobody wants to see me and sit and watch me type all of this. But essentially, we're going to have two collections. So the one is, so we're basically going to do a flexible height gallery for making coffee, one of my favorite things in life. And we're going to then have a top level. So we're going to have stages of making coffee. And underneath that, we're going to have steps. So you'll see the two top stages is boil water and then number 2, make the coffee. And then under each one of these stages, you've got the individual steps. So you'll see under stage 1, which is boil water, you've got step 1.1, which is fill the kettle, 1.2, which is turn on the kettle, and then you've got stage 2.1, which is put coffee in the cup and add what, and you'll see that this is got a little bit more content. So in a normal gallery, this would be an issue because the size of this item would be drastically different than the others. And then we've got 2.2, which is a one line, and then 2.3, which is a multi-line paragraph again. All right, so if I button, you'll see that this is now going to populate this gallery in the background, and we can actually go and insert the flexible height gallery. So for this, we're just going to do a blank flexible height gallery, and we're just going to put it in the corner. And we're going to show the items for this to be the coal stages collection. All right, and let's just turn the height of this to be the size of the screen. So we're just going to make that parent.height, and you'll see that this now takes the whole height of the screen. So first thing we're going to do is add a label, and this works very well with labels as well as HTML text. So you could do very nice HTML paragraphs as well. So you'll see it'll automatically picks up the stage name because that's the only property in this record, and you'll see that there's boil water and make coffee. Now, at the moment, you'll see that there's quite a lot of white space over here. And if I preview this, you'll see that that white space goes away, which means, and this is important to understand, is the flexible height gallery only resizes in preview mode, and sometimes it actually doesn't even resize correctly in preview mode, and then you actually need to launch it as a normal app in order to test it fully. But this is important to understand. At the moment, you'll see that the height of this template or of this item is set to the template height, or the template size rather. If we go to template size, you'll see that's 280, which is the height of this row over here. And the moment you basically play this, it discards that height, and then it calculates according to the height of the content in that gallery. All right, so all of that is working pretty well. What I do want to do at this stage is just turn this auto height property for the label. Just want to turn that on. Okay, and then next thing we want to do is just maybe make this the full width of the gallery as well. So we might want to say use the parent.template width. All right, so then this label is just going to sit through this whole gallery over here. Next thing we want to add is now the next level of flexible height gallery to actually show the steps within this stage. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that I've got this gallery editable, so I can do that by either clicking on the pencil over there or making sure that I've got one of the existing controls highlighted in that gallery to add the control inside the gallery and not in the screen. So what I'm going to do is add another flexible height gallery, and you'll see that that now automatically just assumes the whole size of this template. And first thing I want to do is just go and set the X and Y properties for this. So let's give this an X of 20, just to give it a little bit of an indent. Okay, it doesn't like that because the width is probably set to the whole width. So I'm just going to set the width of this gallery to be the parent.template width minus 40 to just give us some space. Okay, maybe let's not height width.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. That's why I need you. Thank you. All right, so now we can go and say X, change that to 20. All right, so just to give it a little bit of an indent. Next thing we want to do is set the Y parameter of this thing. So we want to put it just underneath that label 1. So we're going to take the label 1.y plus the label 1.height, which is basically just going to put it underneath that, that label 1. So right now the height of this is a bit of an issue, and this is the part that we'll get to later, the pattern that I want to show you guys. So the height of the entire gallery is static. So similar to the height of the top level gallery, you'll see that we set to the parent.height, which is the screen height, but that's not automatically adjustable, and that's not dynamic. So that is set to a manual value. And the problem with that is that if you add more steps, or if a specific stage has more steps than the other, then you're either going to end up with some of them being cut off, or you're going to end up with a scroll bar. And that's typically what you don't want. So the rows within the gallery adjusts, but the gallery itself doesn't. But I'll show you how to get around that in a second. So on the nested gallery, we're going to add a label, and we're just going to have to tell this gallery what it's going to show. And for the items, we're going to go and filter the collection that has all of the various steps. And we only want to show the items for, or the steps that are specific for that stage, for that specific item. So if we go and say where the step or the stage ID equals this item dot ID. So this might be a little bit confusing. I'll just quickly show you the structure of the data again. So we'll see that we're now filtering the steps to only show the relevant steps depending on which stage is being displayed in the top level gallery. Right, and then once that's done, we can go and say we just want to show the details of the step. And at the same time, we're just going to turn off the auto height on this quickly. And we might want to set the width to be the same as the parent.width. Right, so if we now preview this, you'll see that it's actually the content of each one of these rows are sizing correctly, but we're still sitting with this big white space because of the gallery, the nested gallery, that it's 280 pixels high. And this is the next thing that I want to show you quickly on how to get around. Right, so first thing we want to do is we want to count all of the items in the nested gallery. And that's pretty easy. There's a couple of ways to do that, but the challenging bit is to understand the height of each one of those items, because those could change depending on the content in each one of them. So the best way the only way that we found to do this is if you add another item, right? So let's go and add another label, and this is going to be a hidden label essentially. I'm just going to make this one a little bit smaller, so let's just make that 50, so we just have a little bit of space to play with. And let's make it very small as well, so it never interferes with the actual size. This you'll typically hide the content of this completely because the user doesn't need to see this. And you'll see that this control is now repeated on every row, obviously, and this is exactly what we're looking for. So what we now want to do is set the text value of this label to be label2.height. So maybe I must just rename them so it's easier to see. So let's call this, that's the body, and this is going to be the height. Okay, so just get rid of that K. So you'll see that each one of these controls now understands from this formula, it needs to go and have a look at the body control in the same row and then display the height. And the height of this is what is dynamic, and this is what's making all of this work. If I preview this, you'll see that there's got 32, so that's got a 32 height, that's a 32, there's 112, there's a 40 for some reason. I actually think that's just because it's being played in the studio. If you launch this as a normal app, that'll be 32 as well. And then the 2.3 is 72 height. All right, so we're now heading in the right direction. The next thing that we need to do is create a formula to count all of this up, and then, or to sum all of this up, and then to use this as a height for the nested gallery. So if we go into height over here, we're going to replace that static value, and we're going to change that to sum, right? So we're going to be counting something. We just don't know what yet. So we're going to sum this, add a space, and now we need to pass it all of those individual values, right? And this is where the trick comes in. We're now going to run a for all loop that's basically going to run through all of the items in this gallery and to go and fetch the value of that body height control. And the way that we do that, if we look at the syntax up there, it says the for all runs on a source. So that's typically a table. And then you need to pass it a formula that'll evaluate against each one of the items in that table. So the table we're going to give it is we're going to give it itself. So we're going to say, go and look at yourself nested gallery and just reply or return all of your items. And we're then going to give it a comma and give it the next parameter in the for all loop. And that's the formula that it now needs to return for each one of these items. And the formula that we're going to return is simply just the label body height dot text. All right, so we see we've got red squigglies all over the place. It's because the formula isn't ready yet. But essentially that now finishes the for all bit. And this is going to return a table of all of those values from each one of those body heights. And the column name for that table is value. Right, so if I now put value in there, you'll see all of this evaluates. So that's a table. And then all of this evaluates to a certain height, which at the moment it's 40, which probably isn't correct. But if I preview this, you'll see that all of this is now shrinking better. There's still a small scroll bar, and I'll show you why that is now. Basically, but it's getting moving in the right direction. The reason for that scroll bar still being there is in this formula, we're counting the height for all of the body controls. But we're not accommodating for the template spacing or the template padding. So if we go and turn off the template padding between each one of these items, if we now play this, you'll see, okay, there's still a scroll bar, unfortunately. But I'm willing to say that if I publish this and I actually then go and launch this as a normal application, that gallery or that scroll bar should go away. It will be really disappointing if it doesn't. Or disappointed if it doesn't, and disappointed. All right, so let's go and launch that. So let's see what happens. Let's press the button. Okay, that didn't work as planned. What I might also try and do. Okay, that's a fail. I did change that label to a flexible. Oh, I didn't. You see, that's the problem. So the label on the nested gallery, for whatever reason, I didn't change to an auto height. I'm pretty sure I did, but who am I to argue? Make sure that's turned on.
The joys of live demos, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to refresh it a couple of times, make sure I've got the latest release.
There we go.
Okay, so it's still not happy. It's still got those scroll bars. That is quite disappointing, actually. The height of this. All right, so what I'm just going to try and do as well is just run this on screen on the refresh. So there are some caveats to this, unfortunately, and it all has to do with the way that this is being rendered. Okay, so
Dawid, essentially, if you were navigating to a screen with that content already on it, it should be a bit easier to render.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. So the button I introduced at number 99 to not have to make it easier to preview it in the studio. So, okay, so there's still a padding somewhere that I need to get rid of, but that's essentially, you know, I think we not going to sit and troubleshoot this now, but essentially you'll get the point that it's doesn't have that big large spacing. Just there's something, a padding that's messing me around at the moment. Well, actually, what it might be is if this body, if the Y property for this, it is 0, so it's not that either. Okay, that's disappointing. I've got another app here that's just to show what that looks like. I just built it before the demo, but essentially there it is. So that's the very same thing, but it doesn't have any scroll bars or anything like that.
Awesome.
All right, so any questions before I get into the caveats?
Dawid, just a question. Sorry, it's Monet. Just a question from my side. This doesn't matter what the browser or device or anything like that.
I haven't picked up problems with that, no. I know that there are other methods that some of the people are using to insert an HTML control and then using that control determine the height of the content. So then you rely on the actual HTML instead of the control to give you the height. And I know that there are some challenges with that. With this, I haven't picked up any issues between different browsers.
Perfect, Dawid. So caveats?
Right, so one of the biggest caveats, and this is why I'm actually not too surprised by that one that didn't work with the button, is you'll see that in this example, I am using the two separate collections, and then filtering the content of the second collection based on the items of the first one. Now, in this scenario, it typically renders well. I haven't experienced issues with this. If that content is there at the time of the screen loading. What I have seen isn't working, and I've got another app to just show you the problem with these, or the difference between these two. If I launch this bug app, you'll see that in this example, it's rendering perfect. There's no issues with it. But if I go to the nested screen, you'll see that the first item of the second stage is cut off. So the first lines of that is cut off completely. So they put the coffee and his line is cut off. So I'm busy chatting to the guys at Microsoft to understand why that's happening. But the difference between these two is in the nested type, we are actually using a nested collection instead of using the two separate collections. So you might say, well, what is a nested collection? And in short, it's where you would embed the values of the second collection inside of a property for the first one. So you'll see there I've got stage 1, and then I've got the multiple steps in a nested table inside of a property for that first stage. Now, for some stupid reason, this is affecting the rendering of the flexible height gallery. So, for now, until this is sorted out, we will recommend just using the two separate collections, which generally works very well, provided that the data is there at the time of launching the collection or launching the gallery, so it has sufficient opportunity to render it correctly.
Awesome. Looks
Cool.
Thanks for sharing, Dawid. I'm sure
Any other
some
questions?
people will. No? Okay, perfect. I'm sure some people will come across this soon, and this will definitely help them. So thanks for sharing, Dawid. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Okay, next we're moving on to Mike.
Hey. Thanks, dude. Thanks, Dawid, for sharing your tech tip. Isn't it a real bummer when your demos don't work? Never happens to me, man. Never happens to me. Okay, cool. So I'm also going to show something that I've learned over the last few weeks. So generally, I like to share, like stuff that I've learned. And so there's kind of two things I want to share with you today, which are related. And if you don't know, I'm about to tell you that I have like this fetish for inspection apps. Apps that you can use to use for auditing something or inspecting something, inspecting a store, inspecting safety, inspecting a child. A school teacher could use an app that does inspection. Essentially, they're assessing a child. So I love these types of apps, and I've built a few. But I found recently that Microsoft has released their own app. So I quickly wanted to show you the app and then something very specific inside of that app. So let me share my desktop, and then I'll show you the app that I'm talking about. Let's share screen one, and I'm just going to turn off my video. I'm sure you don't need to see me anymore. And this is the app here. So this inspections app actually comes with the new Project Oakdale. And I know not everyone has access to Project Oakdale. It's in preview at the moment. But if you do, you have access to create an inspection app. And when you create it, it basically creates two apps. One is for the person who's doing the inspection or the survey or the audit, whatever you want to call it. And the other one is for setting them up. So I'll just quickly show you the app from like a user perspective, completing an inspection. So you'll see here it's sitting inside of Teams, and it's good afternoon, Michael. So it got afternoon correct. Well done. It's not morning. And I've got some tasks assigned to me. There's 2 overdue. 2 are assigned to me, and they're active. And just by the way, this is actually sitting in Planner. So when you create tasks, when you complete tasks, they all actually sit inside of Planner. So there's my 2 tasks. So it's pretty smart in how it uses those. And then I can go and perform an inspection. So let me just perform an inspection. And you might have different types of inspections, right? Or different types of surveys or assessments. The samples that they ship with are all around kind of retail. I did a demo recently for in the education space, and I talked about how you might want to inspect the school bus before it takes the kids on a trip. And so I added a school bus assessment or inspection. And so when you select it, you then get a bunch of questions that you need to essentially answer, in other words, do the inspection. So I've done 0 out of 5 of them. And usually you can load a nice little picture here. It makes it look pretty cool. So I've got a checklist of the questions. I need to check the tire treads, indicators, etc. So I'm going to begin the inspection. And so now it's got for each question, I need to go and answer it. So is the tire tread okay on the tires? And I can say, yeah, it's okay. Indicators, no, there's an issue. And in fact, because there's an issue, I might want to upload a photo. Obviously, if I was using my mobile phone, it would then use my camera, and I can upload a photo. So I might go and upload a photo, and then you'd get your different photos appearing along here. You can keep adding them. You can add a note and say, yeah, right back indicator is bad. I can assign a task, and this will create a task in Planner. Someone needs to go and fix it. And then maybe I've got some flow that fires off to notify someone that there's an issue. Anyway, I go through and I can do this inspection. Is this teacher's cell phone working and got battery? And then I've got, there we go. So this one's got an issue. It's red. You can see it's got an attachment, 5 out of 5 complete. I can submit the inspection. So a pretty cool app, actually, like really cool. And when you define what the inspections are and what fields or what questions are inside of an inspection, you have a different app. So there's an admin app called Manage Inspections. And this is where you go and set up those questions, which I'll briefly show you. And then I'll jump into the learning piece. Come along. Okay, so there we go. Here's the admin app. So from here, you can add an inspection. You can also change text. So instead of it saying add inspection, I've made it say add vehicle, which doesn't really make sense. But anyway, so here's the school bus inspection. And when I select this school bus inspection, I will see the different questions on the right-hand side as soon as it loads that make up that inspection. You know, check the tire treads, indicators, etc. So here's some completed and incomplete inspections. Let me go to inspection forms. I think this is where I did it. It was sports transport. Come along. Yeah, sorry. So the first tab was showing me completed and draft inspections. And this is taking some time. There we go. Okay, so this is where I defined the question. So the first one was check the tire tread. What are the options to respond? Okay, issue not applicable. And from here, I can go and add new ones. I can move them up and down. I can change the order of the questions. I'd click edit and then I'd go into a mode that can do that. So that's the app. And I thought that's pretty cool. But I love deconstructing apps. I love learning from them and seeing, like, how did they do this? So I opened up the app in design mode and I wanted to start learning. And the first thing I noticed in this app, the piece that I thought was pretty interesting, was they've got a label here that says, "Good afternoon, Michael." And I looked at the text property to see how they were doing that. And if I opened it up, it's got this with function. And I'd never used the with function before. Like, what on earth is this thing doing? How does the with function work? Why did they do it like this? Why didn't they just say, you know, like this big string concatenation of "Good afternoon, Michael"? And well, it turns out they're actually really determining whether it's the morning or the afternoon or the evening and showing you an appropriate greeting. And I thought, okay, cool, let me understand a little bit more around the with function. So I just want to quickly show you what I learned about the with function. And it's something actually I'm going to use a lot more of now. So let me just jump here to a blank app. And here I've got a label. And I want to just show you how the with function works. So if I go and start writing an expression, I want to set this label just to some random text for now, just to show you how the with function works. So it starts off with the keyword with, and then it always works basically on a record. So you're basically saying, with this record or using this record, go and do something. So using this record, and I'm just going to manually create a record, but I could actually be getting a record from some data that I already have, you know, some row of data. So I'm going to say I'm going to have this record, and I'm just going to randomly say I've got a number 1, which is 12, and I've got a number 2, which is 5, let's just say. So there's my record. It's got 2 name value pairs, a number 1 and a number 2. So with that record, now I've got a formula, now I can use it. So what do I want to do with that record? Well, I want to create a string. So I'm going to say, this is number 1, and I'm just going to concatenate onto that number 1 from the record, and it actually shows me here number 1, because you know, number 1, number 2, number 1, number 2. So let's take number 1 and close that off. I'm just going to format my text so it looks a little bit easier to read. There we go. So I've essentially done string concatenation. And you'd say, okay, but whew, this is a long way of doing it. It is, but sometimes your string concatenation needs to become super complicated, and you need to kind of pre-do stuff on variables. And it's just like, where do I do this stuff on the variables? Then you start putting the variable setting inside of like screen visible, because you can't set a variable in a text property and then use it later. You just can't do it. So this is certainly a way to do that. And then you can start embedding widths inside of widths. So you can start saying, okay, well, actually inside of this width, I want another width where I'm going to have a record, and then I'm going to display some data. But in this one, I'm going to do a calculation. So I'm going to say, let's calculate. I'll just create a calc variable, if you want to call it a variable. And this is actually going to equal number 1 times number 2. And then in my string now, I'm going to say the result is calc. Let's just put a little space there. Format this a little bit better. And you can see in my label, I now have result 60. And what I'm doing is I'm using data and I'm initializing variables. And then at the end, I'm actually setting the text that I want. It's actually much easier to read if I had to try and build this in some type of other way with an if statement. And when it becomes really interesting is actually I want to look up data from a real record. So instead of doing this type of stuff, I can literally start using like lookup functions to look up a record from somewhere else and now use that data that comes from that lookup function within a with clause. So if I go back here, actually, if you try and build this logic in something other than a with, it looks very horrible. And initializing variables, in quotes variables that are part of a record here, outside of with becomes tricky. You have to start putting it outside of this text property, and then it's not easy to read the your code in quotes. So here they're actually initializing variables. What's the current hour? So they're getting the current hour. They're setting a variable that morning is anything, you know, kind of 5 hours before, afternoon is 12 o'clock, evening is 8 o'clock. And then they've got this if statement here, which is basically comparing the current time and saying if it's, you know, where does it fit in here, and then determining if it's morning, evening, or afternoon. And then at the end, it's spitting out the text, good, morning, evening, afternoon, and the current logged on user's first name. So that was my learning using this with statement. I think go and check it out, because there's a lot of times now where I think it's going to be far more valuable to have my code in a neater way by using the with statement rather than presetting variables before this text property and just making it really hard to read. So that's it. That's it from me. The inspection app, go check it out, and using a with statement, maybe something you want to check out. You don't have to use with statements. I'm sure you can get stuff done without them. Well, I have been, but otherwise they look pretty cool.
No, this is really cool, Mike. Thanks for sharing. I can already think of some ideas where I can improve some of my formulas with the with statement. So thanks for sharing. This is definitely going to help. And David's also posted a YouTube video into the chat channel with a basic introduction to the with function. So if you need more info, check them out.
So, Michael,
any questions for Mike?
Just one thing I want to add to that is, Mike, I think that from a performance perspective, the moment you want to go and do lookups that's going to hit the network, and you want to then compare that value to something, and then you might want to then use that value in another part of your formula again. If you don't use with, you're going to do multiple network transactions. You know, so if you want to say if that, then concatenate this with something else, then you would use multiple network functions. But if you use with, you do the network function once, you set all of your code variables, like exactly like you mentioned earlier. So you set the variables that are just relevant for this formula, and then you can easily use it in multiple areas without doing multiple network calls.
Great, thanks for that, David.
Very cool.
It really is. Okay, so I'm just going to open it up to the floor. Is there anything that anyone else has, anything that they want to share maybe, or any general questions that anyone wants to ask?
Just by the way, I figured out why my presentation didn't work. So
okay.
Just basically in that the calculation control, let me just quickly share my screen and just show you that it does actually work.
Yeah, we got to see you troubleshooting a bit while Mike was busy doing his intro.
Oh, did you hear the clicking in the background? So,
Yeah.
so the control, this actual body height control, the height, I set the size of it, which just set the size of the text, but then I didn't set the height. So what actually happened is the height of this control was higher than that, or more than the actual body, and that caused it to scroll. So I just set that to be tiny, and typically, like I said, you'll set that to be hidden, and now it renders properly even with the button, you know, so that's now working properly.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Dawid. Appreciate it. Okay, great. So anything from anybody else before we drop off the call? Any questions, comments, suggestions on what you would like to see in future sessions?
Yeah, sorry, I just have a question. That app that Michael showed, is that based on a template that we can just install, right?
Yeah, once you get access to Project Oakdale and you're busy adding apps to Teams, you'll see it's one of the template apps that you get to use.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and that's a very important point, Mornay and everyone, is you can only create that app in Project Oakdale. So you have to create the app from Teams. So inside of Teams, you get the Power Apps icon on the left-hand side. And when you click on that, it says create an app. And there's 3 templates there. There's the inspections template. There's, I think, a tasks template, and there's something else. I can't remember what it is. But those 3 templates are different to the templates that you get in normal Power Apps, quotes in normal Power Apps, when you go to make.powerapps.com and you have templates. So the only way to get it is to go and create it through Project Oakdale. And if you don't know what Project Oakdale is, just do a quick internet search on Project Oakdale and you'll see.
It will be interesting to see once we start getting those features in our local tenants, because as far as I know, it's not available in the SA tenants at the moment.
No, unfortunately not.
Do you guys know if you can get the templates without actually going into make.powerapps?
No, well, these templates are only available if you're doing it through Teams.
But I think what Mornay is,
in general.
I think what Mornay is asking is can somebody download that and send it to him? There's some design elements in it that he wants to steal.
I actually haven't checked it out yet, but I'm sure you could export it. I'll test it out and let you know, Mornay.
Yeah, I guess you could create an app and export it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had a question from a customer the other day that said, where can we get a list of templates so we can see what's available? And even though I know you can go to make.powerapps.com and you get all the templates, but the question was kind of like, they don't have Power Apps at the moment. They just want to make sure that, the requirement is met. So I was wondering if there is a public-facing site for all of those templates.
There might be something on one of the blog posts in the community site. I'll check and then let you know. I know we had stuff before on there. I just don't know how up to date it would be. Okay, perfect. So with that, thanks everyone for your time this evening. I hope you found this worthwhile. Thanks a lot, and a big shout out to the Liberty team for sharing. That was really great. I'm sure a lot of people can get value of it. And as usual, if you think of anything that you want to see in these sessions, or you have questions and that you want to ask, post them on the various communities, on the meetup group, on the community site, and then we can look at including that. We are going to have a event in December. So beginning of December, we decided we will have one. Around, you can attend that session. Okay. So with that, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time. I hope you have a great evening further.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.